Put your hands behind your back.
I stared at the mashed potatoes on my plate. They were cold, just like the look in my daughter-in-law's eyes. I sat at the end of the table, my hands trembling slightly as I held my fork. To them, I was just Grandma Rose, old, fragile, and recently very hard of hearing, or so they thought. My son, Mark, cleared his throat. He looked nervous. He kept glancing at his wife, Brenda. Brenda didn't look nervous. She looked hungry, and not just for the meatloaf. "She's eating like a bird again," Brenda said loudly. She practically shouted it, leaning toward me. "Eat your food, Rose." I slowly lifted my head and gave her a confused smile. "The weather is lovely, dear," I said, making my voice crack just a little. Brenda rolled her eyes and turned back to Mark. She dropped her voice to a normal volume. "See?" she scoffed. "She's completely gone, Mark. The lights are on, but nobody is home." My heart hammered against my ribs. I heard every word perfectly. I gripped my napkin under the table. "She can't hear us," Brenda continued, stabbing a piece of carrot. "We need to make the call, Mark. Tonight." Mark rubbed his face. "I don't know, Brenda. It feels wrong." "What feels wrong?" she snapped. "Living in this dusty old house with a vegetable? We need the money, Mark, and we can't sell the place while she's still cluttering up the guest room." I froze. Sell the house? My house? The house my late husband built with his own 2 hands? Brenda smirked, thinking I was in my own little world. "The brochure is on the counter," she whispered. "Sunrise Assisted Living. They have a bed open on Tuesday." Tuesday. That was 3 days away. I forced myself to swallow a bite of potato. It tasted like ash. My own son sat there, saying nothing. His silence was louder than Brenda's shouting. I had raised him to be a good man. I had wiped his tears, paid for his college, and welcomed Brenda into the family when no one else would. Now he was letting her plan my exile right in front of my face. "It's for her own good," Brenda said, pouring herself more wine. "She needs professional help, and we need the equity." "Sunrise is not a nice place, Brenda," Mark mumbled. "I heard rumors about that place. They sedate the residents." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Sedate? Brenda waved her hand dismissively. "It's cheap, Mark. That's the point. The cheaper the home, the more profit we keep from the house sale." She looked at me and smiled, a fake, sugary smile. "Isn't that right, Rose? The meatloaf is good, yes?" I nodded slowly. "Yes, dear. Very tender." Inside, I was screaming. They weren't just planning to move me. They were planning to dump me in a warehouse for the forgotten so they could cash out my life's work. But Brenda made a mistake. She assumed I was helpless. She assumed I was the dumb old lady she treated me as. She didn't know that I had visited my lawyer, Mr. Henderson, just last week. And she certainly didn't know what I had in my pocket. Mark sighed. "Okay, call them. But how do we get her to sign the power of attorney?" Brenda laughed. "Oh, honey, that's the easy part." She reached into her purse and pulled out a document. "I'm going to tell her it's a birthday card for her grandson." My blood ran cold. Dinner ended in silence. At least, silence for me. For them, it was a planning session. They discussed the listing price of my home. They discussed buying a new car with the profits. They discussed how they would turn my garden, my beautiful rose garden, into a parking pad. I washed the dishes just like I did every night. Brenda didn't offer to help. She sat on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. I scrubbed a plate, my mind racing. I needed a plan. I couldn't just confront them. If I revealed I could hear, Brenda would just change tactics. She would bully Mark into doing something worse. She might even try to have me declared incompetent legally. No, I needed to catch them. I needed proof. I dried my hands and walked into the living room. Brenda looked up. She decided to have a little fun. She stood up and walked right up to my face. She was smiling, but her eyes were cold. "You are a useless old hag," she said in a normal conversational tone. My instinct was to slap her, but I didn't flinch. I kept my face blank. "I can't wait to throw all your ugly clothes in the trash," she continued, tilting her head. "And that ring on your finger? The diamond? I'm taking that first." She reached out and touched my wedding ring. I pulled my hand away gently. "Oh, are you cold, dear?" I asked, playing the part. Brenda laughed. "She's totally deaf. It's hilarious." She turned to Mark. "See? She has no clue. Sign the papers tomorrow, dump her Tuesday, rich by Friday." She walked away, laughing. But as she turned her back, I saw something fall from her pocket. It was a small, crumpled piece of paper, a receipt. I waited until she left the room. I pretended to sweep the floor and bent down to pick it up. I unfolded it. My breath hitched. It wasn't a receipt for groceries. It was a receipt from a locksmith. Dated yesterday. Why did Brenda need a locksmith? She had a key to the house. I walked slowly to my bedroom, clutching the paper. I closed the door and locked it. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might stop. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked around my room. Everything I owned was here. Pictures of my late husband, Henry, the quilt my mother made, and my eyes darted to the closet, the floor safe. It was hidden under a heavy box of winter coats. Only Henry and I knew the combination. Mark didn't know it existed. I got down on my hands and knees. My joints ached, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I shoved the box aside. I pulled up the loose floorboard. The safe was there, but something was wrong. There were scratches around the dial, fresh scratches. Silver metal shone through the gray paint. Someone had tried to force it open, or someone was trying to make a key for it. The locksmith receipt. For services rendered, safe impression kit. My stomach dropped. Brenda wasn't just after the house. She knew about the bonds. Henry had left a significant amount of government bonds in that safe, intended for my medical care and our grandchildren's education. If Brenda got those, she could cash them and vanish. I heard footsteps in the hallway. They stopped right outside my door. The doorknob slowly turned. I held my breath. I had locked it, but the lock was flimsy. "Rose," Brenda's voice came through the wood. "Are you asleep?" She didn't wait for an answer. I saw a thin metal tool slide under the door. She was trying to pick the lock. I scrambled onto the bed and pulled the covers up to my chin. I had to be asleep. I had to play dead. The lock clicked. The door creaked open. I lay perfectly still, breathing in a slow, steady rhythm. My back was to the door. I heard the soft thud of footsteps on the carpet. "She's out," Brenda whispered. "Hurry up, Mark. Bring the flashlight." Mark's heavy footsteps followed. We shouldn't be doing this while she's in the room, Brenda. Shut up and hold the light. The locksmith said this key might be sticky. They were going for the closet. I squeezed my eyes shut. I heard the box of winter coats being dragged across the floor. Scrape. Here it is, Brenda hissed. I heard the metallic clink of a key sliding into the safe. My heart stopped. If they opened it, they would see the bonds were gone. I had moved them to the bank safety deposit box 2 days ago, but they would find something else. They would find the new will I had drafted, the will that cut Mark out completely if he put me in a home. If they saw that, they wouldn't wait until Tuesday. They might try to get rid of me tonight. Come on, Brenda grunted. Click. The safe door swung open. Silence. What is this? Brenda whispered. Her voice wasn't triumphant. It was angry. It's empty, Mark said. There's nothing here but a tape recorder. My eyes snapped open. I had forgotten. I left the old voice recorder in there, and it had fresh batteries. Play it, Brenda commanded. Click. My own voice filled the room, tinny and recorded. If you are listening to this, then you are stealing from me, and I know everything. Brenda gasped. Wake her up, she hissed. Wake her up now. Mark shook my shoulder violently. Mom! Mom! Wake up! I let out a groggy moan and fluttered my eyes open. I had to give the performance of a lifetime. I looked at Mark, then at Brenda, blinking rapidly. Mark? Is it morning? I mumbled, my voice thick with sleep. Brenda didn't buy it. She lunged at the bed. She grabbed the front of my nightgown and yanked me forward. Cut the act, Rose! She screamed, her face inches from mine. We heard the tape! Where are the bonds? I stared at her, wide-eyed and trembling. Bonds? Brenda, why are you yelling? I can't hear you well. Brenda let go of me, shoving me back against the pillows. She grabbed the tape recorder from Mark's hand and smashed it against the wall. Plastic shattered everywhere. She's lying, Mark. She knows. She moved the money. Mark looked at the broken plastic, then at me. He looked terrified. Mom, he said slowly, enunciating every word. Did you move anything from the safe? I tilted my head, looking confused. Safe? Mark, we don't have a safe. Your father never believed in them. I saw the vein in Brenda's forehead bulge. My gaslighting was working. Brenda turned to Mark, her hands shaking with rage. She is mocking us. She is laughing at us. She pointed a long manicured finger at me. You think you're smart, old woman? You think you can hide your money and live here for free? She marched to the door. Mark, get the hammer and nails from the garage. My blood went cold. Why? Mark asked, his voice trembling. Brenda turned back, her eyes dead and dark. Because if she wants to play games, she can play them in the dark. We're boarding up the windows. I sat frozen in my bed as Mark left the room. He did exactly what she told him. He always did. Brenda stayed in the doorway, crossing her arms. You're not going to Sunrise anymore, she said, her voice dangerously low. That place is too nice for you, and it costs money. She stepped closer. If you don't tell me where those bonds are by tomorrow morning, I'm putting you in the state facility, the one downtown. I knew the one she meant. It was a hellhole. People went there to die, usually within weeks. I kept my face blank, but my hands gripped the sheets tight. I'm thirsty, I whispered. Brenda laughed. It was a cruel, dry sound. Thirsty? Good. Maybe that will jog your memory. She walked over to my bedside table. There was a glass of water there and my heart medication. She picked up the glass. For a second, I thought she was going to give it to me. Instead, she poured it onto the carpet right in front of my eyes. Oops, she sneered. Then she snatched the bottle of pills. And you won't be needing these either. Medicine is for people who contribute to this household. My heart skipped a beat. I needed those beta blockers. Without them, the stress could trigger a heart attack. She knew that. She was counting on it. From downstairs, I heard the sound of hammering. Mark was boarding up the back door. They were sealing me in. The next morning, the house was silent. My throat was parched. My chest felt tight. They hadn't unlocked my door since last night. I dragged myself out of bed and went to the window. It wasn't boarded up, but it was locked, and we were on the second floor. I looked down at the driveway. Brenda's car was gone. Mark's truck was gone. They had left me alone, trapped, without food, water, or medicine. I tried the bedroom door handle. Locked. I pressed my ear against the wood. Silence. But then I heard a faint sound. Beep, beep, beep. It was coming from the kitchen below. The security system. Someone had opened the front door. Hello? I yelled, pounding on my door. Help! I'm trapped! I waited. Heavy footsteps came up the stairs. My heart soared. Was it a neighbor? Had the mailman heard me? The footsteps stopped outside my door. The lock clicked. The door swung open. It wasn't a savior. It was a man I had never seen before. He was tall, wearing a cheap suit and holding a leather briefcase. He didn't look like a doctor. He looked like a shark. Mrs. Patterson? He asked, smiling. His teeth were yellow. I'm Mr. Vane. Your daughter-in-law asked me to stop by. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. He didn't unlock it. She says you've been difficult regarding the property transfer. He placed the briefcase on my bed and clicked it open. Inside, I saw a syringe and a stack of legal papers. I backed away until I hit the wall. Who are you? I demanded. I dropped the Deaf Act. There was no point anymore. Mr. Vane chuckled. Oh, a miracle. She can hear. He took out a pen. I'm a notary, Mrs. Patterson, and a very good friend of Brenda's. He held up a document. This is a quitclaim deed. It transfers the house to Mark and Brenda immediately. He held up a second document. And this is a power of attorney. It gives Brenda full control over your finances, including those hidden bonds. I straightened my back. I will never sign those. Mr. Vane sighed, as if he was bored. I thought you might say that. He reached into the briefcase again. He picked up the syringe. Brenda told me you were agitated, confused, violent even. He tapped the side of the needle. As a concerned friend, I brought a mild sedative, just to help you calm down. You're not a doctor, I spat. That's illegal. It's only illegal if someone finds out, he said smoothly. And who is going to believe the poor, senile woman who died of a heart attack in her sleep? He took a step toward me. Sign the papers, Rose, or we do this the hard way. I looked around the room for a weapon, a lamp, a book, anything. My eyes landed on the heavy glass vase on the dresser. It was my only chance. Mr. Vane lunged. For a big man, he was fast. He grabbed my left wrist, twisting it behind my back. I screamed in pain. "Sign it," he hissed, shoving the pen into my right hand. He slammed my hand down onto the paper on the dresser. "Just an X will do." I gritted my teeth. My heart was hammering so fast I felt dizzy. I held the pen. I looked at the paper. If I signed, I lost everything. If I didn't, he might kill me right here. "Do it," he yelled. I tightened my grip on the pen, but instead of writing, I jammed the pen backward with all my strength. It stabbed right into his thigh. Mr. Vane howled. He let go of my wrist to grab his leg. "You crazy witch!" he screamed. I didn't wait. I grabbed the heavy glass vase and swung it. Crash! It hit him squarely on the shoulder. He stumbled back, tripping over the rug, and fell hard onto the floor. I didn't look back. I ran for the open door. My legs were weak, shaking from hunger and fear, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I made it to the hallway. I reached the top of the stairs. I had to get to the front door. I had to get to the neighbors. I took the first step down. Then I saw the front door open. Brenda walked in. She looked up and saw me. She saw Mr. Vane groaning on the floor behind me. Her face twisted into a snarl. She didn't run to help him. She ran toward the stairs, toward me. "Get back in your room," she shrieked. She started charging up the stairs, blocking my only exit. I was trapped between a violent man and a monster. I looked at Brenda's furious face. Then I looked back at the open bedroom door where Mr. Vane was getting up. I was cornered. "Don't touch me," I screamed. I raised my hand to slap Brenda, but I was too slow. She caught my wrist in midair. Her grip was like iron. "You made a big mistake, old woman," she hissed. She shoved me backward. I stumbled, my slipper catching on the carpet. I fell hard onto the hallway floor. Before I could scramble up, Mr. Vane was on top of me. He wasn't acting like a notary anymore. He was pinning my arms down with his knees. "Hold her legs, Brenda!" he shouted. I kicked and thrashed. "Get off me! Help! Police!" Brenda grabbed my ankles. "Scream all you want," she laughed. "The windows are closed and the neighbors are deaf." Mr. Vane pulled the syringe cap off with his teeth. I saw the needle glinting in the hallway light. "No, Mark, help me," I cried out. Mark appeared at the bottom of the stairs. He looked pale. He saw his mother pinned to the floor by two strangers. "Brenda, maybe we shouldn't," Mark stammered. "Shut up and lock the front door," Brenda yelled without looking at him. Mark hesitated for 1 second, just one. Then he turned around and locked the door. My heart broke. My own son. I felt a sharp pinch in my arm. The sedative. "Good night, Grandma," Mr. Vane whispered. The world started to spin. The last thing I saw was Brenda's smiling face fading into darkness. I woke up to the smell of mold and damp earth. My head was pounding. My mouth tasted like metal. I tried to sit up, but I couldn't move my hands. They were tied behind my back. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness. I wasn't in my bedroom. I was in the basement. I recognized the humming of the old furnace. I was sitting on a cold wooden chair, tied with what felt like extension cords. I shivered. It was freezing down here. "She's awake," a voice said from the shadows. I squinted. Brenda was sitting on a stack of old boxes, watching me. She was holding a glass of wine. "Did you have a nice nap?" she asked. Untie me, I croaked. No can do, Rose. You're a flight risk. She took a sip of wine. We have a slight change of plans. The nursing home won't take you without a signature. She stood up and walked into the light. And since she refused to sign, we have to look at other options. You can't keep me here forever, I said. People will ask questions. Not really, Brenda shrugged. I already posted on your Facebook. So sad to announce Grandma Rose has moved to a specialized facility in Arizona for her dementia. No visitors allowed yet. My blood boiled. You stole my life, I whispered. I took what Mark was too weak to take, she countered. She leaned in close. But we still have a problem. You're still here, and I'm tired of feeding you. She turned to the stairs. Mark, bring the gas can. Gas can? My eyes widened. What are you doing? I asked, my voice trembling. Brenda didn't answer. She just hummed a little tune. Mark came slowly down the wooden stairs. He was holding a red gasoline container. He wouldn't look at me. He stared at his shoes. Mark, I said softly, look at me. He flinched. Mark, I changed your diapers. I taught you to ride a bike. I held you when your father died. Stop it, Mark whispered. She's going to kill me, Mark. Is that what you want? To be a murderer? It's just an accident, Mark mumbled, reciting lines he had clearly been fed. An accident, Brenda repeated firmly. Old wiring, a spark, a tragedy. She snatched the can from Mark. We're going to sprinkle a little of this around the furnace, then we're going to go out to dinner. She smiled wickedly. When we come back, the house will be gone, and the insurance money will be in our account by next month. It wasn't just greed anymore. It was pure evil. They were going to burn me alive. I frantically looked around the basement. My eyes landed on the workbench behind Brenda. There was a rusty old intercom system on the wall. Henry had installed it years ago so I could call him for dinner when he was working down here. It connected to the garage and the speaker outside by the garden, if I could reach it. But I was tied to the chair. Start pouring, Mark, Brenda commanded. She handed the can back to him. Mark's hands were shaking so bad the liquid sloshed out. I can't do this, Brenda. Do it, she screamed. The distraction was my only chance. I began to rock the chair. You are pathetic, Brenda yelled at Mark. She slapped him across the face. Give me that. She grabbed the gas can. While they were fighting, I rocked the chair harder. Left, right, left, right. I needed to tip it over. If I fell, I could crawl. You're useless, Brenda screamed. I have to do everything myself. She started unscrewing the cap. I threw my weight to the left. Crash. The chair tipped over. I hit the concrete floor hard. My shoulders screamed in pain, but the chair shattered. The old wood was dry and brittle. The back of the chair snapped off. My hands were still tied together, but I was no longer attached to the seat. Brenda spun around. What is she doing? I didn't wait. I rolled onto my stomach and scrambled toward the workbench. Get her! Brenda shrieked. I kicked out blindly. My foot connected with Mark's shin. He yelped and fell back. I dragged myself up using the workbench. My bound hands fumbled for the intercom button. Brenda was charging at me. Oh, no, you don't. She grabbed my hair and yanked my head back. I screamed in pain, but my finger found the button. I pressed it down. Help! Fire! They're burning the house! Help me! My voice boomed through the external speakers in the garden. It echoed into the street. Brenda realized what I had done. Her face went pale. She let go of my hair and looked at the intercom. You stupid... She grabbed a wrench from the bench and smashed the intercom. But it was too late. The message was out. Silence fell over the basement. We all froze. Brenda was breathing heavily, the wrench in her hand. Mark was on the floor, rubbing his leg. I was slumped against the workbench, gasping for air. Did anyone hear it? Mark whispered. Shut up, Brenda hissed. She tilted her head, listening. We heard nothing but the hum of the furnace. Nobody heard, Brenda said, trying to convince herself. The speakers are old, probably didn't even work. She turned back to me, her eyes full of hate. Now you've made me mad, Rose. She raised the wrench. We don't need the fire. I'll finish this right now. She took a step toward me. I squeezed my eyes shut, preparing for the blow. Ding dong. The doorbell rang upstairs. Brenda froze mid-swing. We stared at the ceiling. Ding dong. Hello? A voice called out, muffled through the floorboards. Mrs. Patterson, is everything okay? It was Mrs. Gable from next door, the nosiest neighbor on the block, and for the first time in my life, I loved her for it. Brenda lowered the wrench. Panic flickered in her eyes. Don't make a sound, she mouthed to Mark. She pointed the wrench at me. If you scream, I will kill him first, she whispered, pointing at Mark. I'll answer it, Brenda whispered. She fixed her hair and started up the stairs. Mark, if she moves, hit her. Mark looked at me. He was holding the gas can. Brenda disappeared upstairs. I heard the front door open. Oh, hi, Mrs. Gable. Brenda's voice was sickeningly sweet. I heard shouting, Mrs. Gable said. And something about a fire? Oh, that? Brenda laughed. We were just watching a movie with the surround sound too loud. So sorry. I had to do something. I looked at Mark. He had tears in his eyes. Mark? I whispered. She was going to burn us both. You know that, right? Mark looked at the gas can in his hands. She wasn't going to let you leave either, Mark. You know too much. Mark's face went white. He knew I was right. Upstairs, the conversation was ending. Well, all right then, Mrs. Gable said. Have a good night. You too. The front door closed. We were alone again, and Brenda was coming back down to finish the job. Brenda's heels clicked on the wooden stairs. She came down slowly. Her face was calm, too calm. She reached the bottom and looked at Mark. Give me the can, she said softly. Mark held it tight. You lied to Mrs. Gable, Mark said. I protected us, Brenda corrected. She walked over and yanked the gas can from his hands. Go wait in the car, Mark. Mark didn't move. He looked at me, then at her. You're not going to let us leave, are you? He asked. His voice was barely a whisper. Brenda sighed. She unscrewed the cap. You were always too soft, Mark. Just like her. She splashed gasoline onto the pile of old newspapers near the furnace. The smell of fumes filled the air instantly. The truth is, Brenda said, backing toward the stairs, I don't need a husband. I need a widow's pension. She splashed the rest of the gas toward Mark's feet. Mark jumped back. Brenda? Goodbye, boys, she said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a lighter. She flicked it. A small orange flame danced in the darkness. "No!" I screamed. She dropped the lighter. Whoosh! The room erupted in light. The newspapers caught fire instantly. The flames roared up, hungry and fast. Heat blasted against my face. "Run, Mark!" I yelled. But the fire was between us and the stairs. Brenda was already halfway up, laughing. She slammed the basement door shut. We heard the lock click. We were trapped in a burning box. Mark stood paralyzed, staring at the flames. "We're going to die," he sobbed. "Not today," I shouted. I rubbed my bound wrists against the jagged edge of the broken chair. The wood bit into my skin, but I didn't care. I sawed frantically at the cords. The smoke was getting thicker. Black and choking. Snap. The cord gave way. My hands were free. I scrambled to my feet. "Mark, the window." The basement had a small hopper window near the ceiling. It was too small for a man, but maybe, just maybe... "It's painted shut," Mark coughed, covering his mouth. "Break it!" I grabbed a heavy wrench from the workbench. I threw it with all my might. Smash! Glass rained down. Fresh air rushed in, but so did the sound of sirens. Sirens. Loud and getting closer. Mrs. Gable hadn't believed her. Bless that nosy woman. "Help is coming," I coughed. But the fire was spreading to the wooden beams of the ceiling. We couldn't wait for the fire department. The stairs were engulfed, but the fire extinguisher was mounted on the wall right next to them. "Mark, the extinguisher!" Mark was cowering in the corner. He was useless. I had to do it myself. I took a deep breath, covered my nose with my sleeve, and ran toward the flames. The heat was unbearable. It singed my eyebrows. I grabbed the red canister. It was heavy. I pulled the pin. I aimed at the base of the fire blocking the stairs. Whoosh! White powder blasted out, choking the flames for a second. It created a narrow path. "Go!" I screamed at Mark. He looked at me, terrified. "Move!" I pushed him toward the stairs. He stumbled up, coughing. I followed right behind him, the fire licking at my heels. We hit the door at the top. It was locked. Mark pounded on it. "Open up! Brenda!" I didn't knock. I used the extinguisher like a battering ram. Bam! Bam! The wood splintered. One more hit. Crash! The door flew open. We tumbled into the kitchen, gasping for air. Smoke poured out behind us. The kitchen was clean, quiet, and Brenda was standing there. She was holding a kitchen knife. She looked at us, covered in soot and ash, her face twisted into a mask of pure rage. "Why won't you just die?" she shrieked. She lunged at me. Mark was on the floor, coughing his lungs out. He couldn't help. I raised the fire extinguisher to block her. The knife clanged against the metal tank. The impact jarred my arm, and I dropped the tank. It rolled away with a loud clang. I was unarmed. Brenda slashed again. The blade caught my sleeve, tearing the fabric. "You ruined everything," she screamed. "You greedy witch," I yelled back. I grabbed a pot of hot coffee from the counter. I threw the liquid at her. She screamed and covered her face. "My eyes!" It gave me a second. Just a second. I ran for the front door. I could see red and blue lights flashing through the window. The police were outside. I unlocked the deadbolt. I threw the door open. "Freeze! Police!" 3 officers stood there, guns drawn. They saw a disheveled old woman covered in soot. Then they saw Brenda, She had recovered. She dropped the knife and instantly fell to her knees, sobbing. "Officer, thank God. She tried to burn the house down. She's crazy." The officers rushed in. 2 of them grabbed Brenda. 1 of them grabbed me gently by the arm. "It's okay, ma'am," the young officer said to me. Brenda was putting on an Oscar-worthy performance. "She has dementia," she wailed, pointing at me. "She thought the furnace was a monster. She lit the fire. I tried to stop her." She looked at Mark, who was crawling into the hallway. "Mark, tell them. Tell them Mom lost her mind." Mark looked up. He was weak. He was broken. And he was terrified of jail. He looked at the police officer. She's been confused lately," Mark stammered. My heart stopped. He was siding with her again, even after she tried to burn him alive. The officer looked at me with pity. "It's all right, Mrs. Patterson. We'll get you to a hospital." Brenda smirked through her fake tears. She thought she had won. She thought I was just a senile old woman who couldn't defend herself. She thought I was deaf. I pulled my arm away from the officer. I stood up straight. I wiped the soot from my face, and I looked Brenda dead in the eye. "Officer," I said. My voice was clear, strong, sharp. "My name is Rose Patterson. I do not have dementia." I pointed at Brenda, "and I have a recording of her admitting to arson and attempted murder." Brenda's face went pale. "What?" she whispered. I reached into the pocket of my ruined dress. I pulled out my smartphone. "I wasn't just deaf, Brenda," I said coldly. "I was recording." I pressed the play button on the screen. The volume was all the way up. Brenda's voice cut through the smoky air, clear as a bell. "The truth is, I don't need a husband. I need a widow's pension." Then came the sound of the lighter flicking. Then Mark screaming. The officer's eyes went wide. He looked at Brenda. She wasn't crying anymore. Her face was frozen in shock. That's fake," she stammered. "AI. She made it with AI." The officer didn't blink. "Ma'am, put your hands behind your back." "No!" Brenda shrieked. She tried to run past him, heading for the gate. The second officer tackled her. She hit the grass face first. "Get off me. Do you know who I am?" "You're under arrest for attempted murder and arson," the officer said, clicking the handcuffs shut. I watched her squirm. I felt no pity, only relief. Then I turned to Mark. He was leaning against the porch railing, shaking. He looked at me with puppy dog eyes. "Mom, thank God you recorded that," he whispered. "I didn't know she was going to light the fire, Mom. You know that." He took a step toward me, arms open for a hug. "I'm so sorry. Can we just go inside?" I held up my hand. "Stop," I said. Mark froze. "Mom? Don't call me that," I said. My voice was steady, but my heart was breaking. "You watched her starve me." I was scared of her," Mark stammered. "You watched her lock me in the basement." Mark looked down at his shoes. "You watched her pour gasoline on your own mother." "But I didn't light it," Mark pleaded. "No," I said softly. "But you bought the gas." The officer approached Mark. "Sir, we need you to come down to the station, too." "Me? But I'm a victim," Mark yelled. "You're an accessory," the officer said coldly. He spun Mark around and cuffed him. Mark looked at me, tears streaming down his face. "Mom, tell them Tell them I helped you escape." I looked at my son, the boy I raised, the man who let his wife treat me like a dog for money. I looked him in the eye. "You only helped me when the fire got too hot for you," I said. I turned my back on him. "Take him away, officer." The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and courtrooms. Mr. Vane, the crooked notary, was picked up at the hospital. He had a nasty infection in his leg from where I stabbed him. He squealed on Brenda immediately to get a plea deal. It turned out they had done this before. I wasn't their first victim, just the first one who fought back. Brenda was denied bail. The judge called her a danger to society. Mark was a different story. Because he testified against Brenda, he got a lighter sentence. Probation and community service. He called me every day from his motel room. He sent letters. He sent flowers. He wanted to come home. He wanted a second chance. I sat in my kitchen, drinking tea from my favorite cup. The walls were still a bit smoky, but the house was mine again. I looked at the pile of letters on the table. They were full of apologies, but they were also full of excuses. I was weak. She manipulated me. I didn't mean it. I picked up the letters. I walked over to the fireplace. I struck a match. I watched the letters burn. It was a different kind of fire than the one in the basement. This one was cleansing. I didn't hate Mark. I loved him. I would always love him, but I could never trust him again. He had chosen his side. He had chosen silence when he should have spoken. He had chosen greed over loyalty. I went to my lawyer's office the next day. Mr. Henderson looked at me over his glasses. "Are you sure about this, Rose?" "I'm sure," I said. I signed the new will. Mark got nothing. Not the house. Not the bonds. Not the jewelry. "Where is it going, then?" Mr. Henderson asked. "To the local shelter for abused seniors," I said. "And I want to set up a scholarship for nursing students." I walked out of that office feeling lighter than air. I stopped by the hardware store on the way home. I bought a new deadbolt and a no trespassing sign. When I got home, I saw Mark's truck parked across the street. He saw me. He got out and ran over. "Mom, please, I have nowhere else to go." I stood on my porch. My kingdom. "You have your freedom, Mark," I said. "Use it to become a better man. But you will not do it in this house." "But you're my mother." "Yes," I said, closing the door, "and I taught you better than this." I locked the deadbolt. Click. 6 months later. The garden was in full bloom. The roses were redder than ever, thanks to the ash I had mixed into the soil. I sat on the porch swing, rocking gently. My hearing aid was in, but I turned it down. I enjoyed the peace. Brenda was serving 20 years. Mark had moved to another state to start over. We exchanged Christmas cards, but that was it. Some people said I was too hard on him, but most people don't know what it feels like to be invisible in your own home. I wasn't invisible anymore. I had joined a book club. I volunteered at the library. And every Tuesday, I had dinner with Mrs. Gable, the neighbor who saved my life. I took a sip of iced tea and looked at the sunset. They thought I was weak. They thought I was a burden. They forgot that old trees have deep roots. And if you try to cut them down, they might just fall on you. I smiled. I was Grandma Rose, and I wasn't going anywhere. The end.